Hey there, Mr. Reddit here. Welcome back to another episode of r/Entitled Parent Stories. Our first story we'll be reading today, Leavey Me Alone, Lady. I Don't Work Here. After that, Entitled Parents Think I'm Not Normal Because I'm Not What They Expected. And after that, Reach Class on Time, But You Hate the Smell? I'll Make You Regret It. Now for every thumbs up this video gets, one Karen gets her file deleted on Pokemon. But I worked so hard at it. So please smash that like button, and if you're new, subscribe and turn on notifications for new stories from Reddit every single day. Leavey Me Alone, Lady. I Don't Work Here. The cast. We've got me, avid Pokemon enthusiast. We've got the store employee, and we've got Team Rocket Karen, the entitled parent, and Snuggles, the Eevee plushie. The story. So I, 33 male, am a huge lover of Pokemon, had just gotten paid and decided I wanted to buy myself a Valentine's gift. I went to my local chain video game store, let's call it Video Game Go, because they have all kinds of collectibles. Having been there several times, I had seen a 24-inch Eevee plushie that I really liked. Perfect. Eevee is one of my favorite Pokemon, and this particular plushie could also be used for cosplay. Having grabbed my plushie and paid for it, and the bag that would give me a $5 discount on any collectibles that would fit inside it, I decided to look around for anything I might want to get on my next visit. Now, as it is rather cold here in Texas, I was bundled up in several layers, including rather warm, comfy sweatpants, a rather large ski jacket, a stocking hat, scarf, and had my backpack on, with Snuggles the Eevee and her exclusive Corgi-eating noodles collectible bag. The employees of this particular video game chain store generally wear jeans, a t-shirt with the store logo or something similar, and a lanyard with a badge showing their name and the company logo on it. So there is no way I could possibly be confused as an employee. Enter Team Rocket Karen. Cue Team Rocket encounter music. Team Rocket Karen wants to battle. Snuggles the Eevee, I choose you. Karen, she had the typical Karen haircut and a look that screamed, "Where's your manager?" Excuse me, do you guys have… Enter game title here. Team Rocket Karen used confusion. It's super effective. Me. What? Team Rocket Karen used clap. Do you have… Enter video game title here. God, some people are so slow. Me. Snuggles the Eevee is confused. It hurt itself in confusion. What? Karen uses snap attack. Karen snapping her fingers. I want… Enter video game title here. I'm going to buy it for my son. Me. Snuggles the Eevee is still confused. I don't know. Maybe. Snuggles the Eevee used Shadow Ball. It hurt itself in confusion. It's at this point I was starting to realize this lady thinks I'm an employee. How her tiny Team Rocket brain made that connection is a mystery to me. I clearly don't look like an employee. Karen used Roar. How do you not know? Are you stupid? Me. Snuggles the Eevee is no longer confused. Whoa, lady. There's no need for that language. This is a family store. Besides, I don't work here. I just came to get this plushie. Snuggles the Eevee used charm. It's not very effective. Karen. Don't lie to me. Of course you work here. You shouldn't be shopping when you're working. She used confusion. Me. What? Snuggles the Eevee is confused. I'm now starting to get mad. I just wanted to browse the store. Lady, what about me makes you think I work here? I look like a bum. Why don't you go over to the counter and ask the actual employee for your game? Leave me alone. At this point, employee, who has heard the whole exchange, finally finished up whatever he was doing and can finally react. He comes over. Employee, what's going on here? Karen opened her mouth to start yelling at poor employee. I've worked retail for most of my life and have dealt with Karens and entitled people a lot. I wasn't going to let her spew her BS. Me. This jerk assumed I work here. When I tried to tell her that I don't, she lost her crap. Karen. That's a lie. This bum just came over and pretended to work here. He stole my stuffed animal. I demand you throw him out and call the cops. Employee and I stared at her in disbelief. Did she seriously try that crap? Employee. Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to leave. You were clearly harassing this customer. I heard everything that was said. Also, I literally just sold this plushie to him. He even has the receipt for it in his hand. Now please leave before I call the police. Karen is faltering now. But… Leave now, lady. Employee used Hyper Beam. It's super effective. Karen has fainted. Karen, while storming out of the store, "See if I ever shop here again, and you can be sure I'll call corporate about the customer service in this place." Employee and I looked at each other and burst out laughing at the absurdity of the whole situation. Employee, "Sorry about that, dude. Is there something in the store I can offer as compensation?" Me, "Nah, dude, we're good. I have a new story for Reddit now." Employee laughed, hooked me up with some store credit, and promised to look up the story and upvote it. I took my Eevee plushie and headed out to get something to eat, still trying to wrap my head around the stupidity of some people. Speaking of Pokemon, who's your favorite Pokemon? Please leave a comment letting us know. Mewtwo for the win. Entitled parents think I'm not normal because I'm not what they expected, and so they hate me. I, 26 female, come from an average South Asian family. Being born a female means you're either married with kids or still living with your parents at this age. I'm the latter. My parents have been told by my extended family that they're the best parents in the world because my extended family as adults are jerks basically. So my parents really take it to heart and are convinced that they are indeed the best parents in the world. I agree that they had gone through a rough time raising us. We're a group of 5, 3 girls and 2 boys, so it couldn't have been easy. And we're all nice kids as well. But they're very concerned that we're not doing the conventional, stereotypical South Asian kids thing like everyone else, so they believe they're still perfect. It's only that we're not normal. I'm the main target because I have my own life. I've never had a romantic relationship because I like being alone better. I didn't become a doctor like they wanted me to. I follow international relations and gender studies instead. Instead of kids, I have cats, whom I love like one would love their kids. Instead of getting a husband, I'm career-focused and pursuing education. And worst of all, when they try to control and subjugate me, I fight back. When they compare me to others, I compare them with the parents of the person/people they're comparing me to. I earn my own money and spend it on things I love, mostly my cats. I am a writer and I am a reader and I am a fighter. For them, all of this is just not normal. There's something wrong with me because I don't fit into the mold that they created, and me not fitting in would essentially take their best parents title away. But my father doesn't speak to his kids like they're humans. I pointed out that I didn't like the way he speaks to me, so he said I was disrespectful. My mother likes to imagine I don't exist and pretends not to hear me. She has sharp ears to catch if it's something about them, but if I'm talking about a concern, she pretends not to hear me. But still, they believe they are the best parents in the world and that there's something inherently wrong with all of their kids. Edit. Wow, I wrote this out of sadness and frustration yesterday night, and I woke up to see it as blown up. Thank you everyone for your kind words, but I think there's a few things to clarify. Sorry that I didn't mention clearly. 1. I do not have a degree in gender studies. I have a degree in social statistics, which can get me a job anywhere else but here. I work as a math teacher. I'm interested in gender studies, but I went to a public university thanks to free education we have here, and I was selected for social statistics, and my university didn't let me study anything else. Selecting your majors isn't simple here, especially if college is free. Also, for free higher education, you need to pass your GCSEs with good results, and I only did enough to get me into the social statistics degree. 2. In my country, moving out really isn't simple. This might sound strange for people like you, but here, most people own their houses. They buy lands and build their own, so usually it happens when people get married. They live with their husband's family for a while, build their own house. There are no affordable one-person houses, and shared houses are either extremely expensive, they're made for the foreign market, as in foreigners who live here, or people who earn a lot of money. But my salary is average, but enough to sustain myself and other means. 3. Someone told me that I don't contribute to my family. I take care of my younger siblings. Until 2 or 3 months ago, I used to spend on them, then my laptop broke, so I informed my parents that I had to save money for the laptop and cut down on the share I spent for my siblings. I bought a laptop recently. They're also very expensive here, so now I will be able to spend for them again. I love my younger siblings, especially the youngest. She's only 14, but she's amazingly talented. I helped my parents in raising her. You know, taking her to school and checking up on her education and all. I also used to be my parents' personal counselor sort of thing. You know, when they think you're academically gifted, they take your advice on everything. So I listen to their problems and all, help them when they want to make decisions on my siblings' education and all. 4. I think there's this misunderstanding that my parents and I hate each other. I actually love them a lot, and I totally understand where they are coming from. My dad had a rough time growing up, so did my mom, so they probably want us to have the best. They grew up in a society where being successful as a doctor or engineer or becoming a teacher and getting married and having kids is the normal, and they see lots of kids doing that. Initially, I want to stay with my parents the whole time because they really need me to stay grounded. Despite them thinking that I'm not normal, they're tired and getting older, so I told them I will stay and take care of them and the youngest until she's old enough. Rather than getting angry, perhaps them seeing that I'm not doing the normal things makes them sad, I think. I feel bad for rebellion sometimes, but I did everything that they wanted, got into a public university, got a good job. I want to live my own life. 5. I want to study gender studies for my postgraduates, but it's not offered here in my country at any university for some reason. So I do international relations for my postgraduates and learn gender studies in my own time. The reason is that I see a lot of GBV in my country, and all the things that I faced as a woman in the university, as well as everything that I and my sister had to go through as well. I think I want to make a difference for other women, and I know I started late, but I'm trying my best. 6. I write fiction. I started at age 7, and for that I'm thankful for my parents, but their outlook changed on it because I don't write in my own language. I write in English, so they think it's not worth reading and all. But I have a bunch of people who like my stuff, including myself, so I'm pretty happy with it. 7. I have 7 cats. They're all rescues. My parents used to support me with them all the time, but when they get sick or when one of them passes, I fall into depression, and they kind of hate it when that happens because they think I wouldn't be like that for them if they get sick. I try not to panic when they do, and I try to do what's necessary. I really hope my parents understand that I love them and my cats differently. Besides, we have good Medicare here if they get sick, but not a single vet surgeon that I can trust. Reach class on time, but you hate the smell? I'll make you regret it. This happened years ago, 2006 to 2009 era. So I went to school with separate sections for boys and girls, but we weren't secluded completely, and some elective classes were mixed. So there was this Karen teacher who really disliked boys. She always called us dirty and loud and yucky and would hit us and pinch us if one of us dared to talk back to her. We had her class mixed with girls, and they all would laugh at us boys for getting the drill and getting humiliated in front of them. The teacher actually enjoyed this, and she would purposefully find excuses to have us shamed for minor issues, like asking your friend for a pen while the girls yapped away and chatted with the teacher. She could not bear to hear us say a word. We were never given any opportunity to speak or answer questions, and she made sure the most difficult passages were given to read to this one boy with speaking difficulty. You get the idea. Basically, a jerk person. All of this behavior really upset me and made my blood boil with anger, but I never got any punishment because it was a language class, and I had always been the top of the class. Even her own daughter, who was with us in the same class, couldn't get past me. One year, we happened to have her class right after PE. Now, we didn't have any rules as to what was to be done in PE class, but we did get laps and push-ups after, which we were off to play cricket for the next 2 whole hours. The playground was a bit of a distance from the classroom, and it was shared by the high school and our middle school. It took about 3 minutes to reach her class from the playground. She hated that we were sweaty and reeked of body odor first day we came to class after we got our PE. She immediately went to the supervisor to have our schedule changed, where she got turned down. But she wasn't going to give up. I could see the hatred in her eyes burning brighter with every stinky breath she took in our class. Next, she implemented a rule saying that no one was allowed to be late more than 1 minute after the start, or they would be marked absent and have their marks cut. Fair enough, I thought. I talked to the teacher who had his period before our PE class, and he was willing to let us go early in exchange for working on a project for his class. I told the boys about my plan. We went to the ground half an hour early, played like heck as usual, got all sweaty, and then poured water all over ourselves to cool us off and rushed off to her class and were right on time, all soaking wet with soggy, disgusting, putrid training shoes, standing in a line in front of the classroom that only she had the keys to. We even took off our socks and kept them in our pockets just to make it smell extra bad. This was literal torture for her, as she had the full blast of the smell because it was a teeny tiny classroom and the boys were made to sit in the front, as a rule for mixed gender classes. We made the excuse that we couldn't dry off because she marked us absent since we had to be at our lockers and the playground was not nearby and all of our lockers were out of the way. We kept at this for a full 6 weeks after, which she gave up and exchanged classes with a male teacher. We never gave him much trouble. He allowed us the keys and we were crisp and cool sitting in front of the AC ready for the class. Best revenge I ever had. Edit. It was 7th grade, and it was an Indian-owned school with kids from all over the world and Middle East. Am I the jerk for refusing to both cook and clean to cater to my husband's dietary needs? I, 34 female, and my husband, Paul, 35 male, have been married for a little over 2 years. We have no kids. Now, I know this is not how it is in every home, and I say do whatever floats your household boat. But here, if one cooks dinner, the other cleans. Turns out, Paul is not a gleeful cook and would rather clean, so almost all of the cooking falls on me, with the occasional takeout. And then lockdown. Paul works out of the home as an essential worker. I work from home. When it was September to October-ish, Paul comes to me and says he wants to eat healthier. Great, I love the man. I'd prefer he'd not have a heart attack. But Paul, my lovely Paul, of course had to take it to the 1003rd degree. He's trying all sorts of fad diets, and I mean all sorts. I've done my best, in my opinion, of complying with these ever-changing diets. It's only 1 meal per day, and besides, it can be fun finding recipes to match whatever weird criteria Paul has this week. This might be a me thing, but whenever I try a new recipe, or one I'm not too familiar with, I tend to be messier when cooking. I mean, it's one thing to kind of auto-cook the pasta recipe you've been making for years, and it's another to be like, oh crap, why are there lemons on the counter? Here, let me scroll through this woman's grandfather's apple orchard essay to see where I use the lemons. Oh, it was step 3, and now I'm on step 7. What's this about flour now? So now there is lemon juice in my eye, behind my contact, and I'm trying to retro flour this piece of meat. This is the problem. Paul came up to me Friday night and said that he doesn't think it's fair that I am so careless with mess when cooking. It makes his job so much harder. I reiterate, the man said the word careless, both syllables, like he wasn't a human with an ability to logically guess the future consequences of one's actions. I took a second and said, before we continue, what do you see as the benefit of your bringing up this conversation with me? And Paul, God bless his little duckling soul, goes, well, if you would clean up, say, half the mess while cooking or right after, it would make my job so much easier. And I asked, will you do half the cooking? And he said, looking me dead in the eye, well, no. I know I can be messy with cooking, using multiple pots, pans, bowls, etc. Like I said, especially when I'm cooking something new. But in my defense, I have to learn something new all the time because Paul comes to me with things like, hey, I'm now going to try to avoid tomatoes and peppers because Tom Brady said they're intestinal or inflammatory or whatever. Who cares? My proposal was that we stick to the original. He either cooks or cleans. I don't intentionally make a mess, but I do intentionally try to meet his diet needs. He says that because I work from home for fewer hours, that taking steps to clean up along the way or take a first swipe at cleaning after cooking is a good marital compromise. I refuse. Well, what do you think? Is Opie the jerk or is her husband? Please let us know. I'd tell that guy to just make his own food. You want to flaunt stupid rules at a soon-to-be lawyer? Two can play this game. I was in my final year of law school. As part of our curriculum, we had to accrue a certain number of hours of out-of-class course-related activities. It was a pretty high number of hours, but if you sort of planned to do them over the course of the years, it wasn't so bad. Anyway, there was a list of the activity types you could use to fulfill this requirement: attending conferences, publishing a paper, writing a report on a lecture, etc. But there were caps on the number of hours you could accrue in each category, so you couldn't just do one thing. The highest cap was for law-related internships, almost 50% of the total requirement. So I planned around that and got into an internship in my final year, which would get me above the required number of hours. You had to log your hours in an online system, which required you to fill the beginning and end dates for the activity and the number of hours you wish to log. As internships here usually don't have a fixed end date, only a maximum of 2 years, but the company or I could terminate it early. I thought I would just file the paperwork as soon as I finished the internship and it would be golden. However, as soon as I did that, the system rejected my request, stating that I should have filed everything before the end of my internship. I figured this was pretty dumb, since anyone logging internship hours wouldn't know the end date or total hours before the end of their internship. So I went to the university's law department, which I thought would immediately correct this obvious mistake, right? Wrong. I basically got told, tough luck, by the professor in charge, and that I should have applied with a fictitious end date and amount of hours before I finished the internship if I wasn't sure of when I was going to leave it. At this point, I'm super anxious. as this internship represents about 50% of the hours I needed to graduate. I wasn't going to be able to make up for that before my graduation date, and I had already passed the bar exam. In my country, you can take it in your final year of law school. And then it dawned on me. It was so simple, I thought it surely wouldn't work. If they wanted me to fill the online form with made-up data, then by all means, that's what I would do. I logged back into the system and filled out the same information for my internship, but I put the end date in the future. When the system approved the request, I submitted my paperwork with a note. As per instructions of Professor Z, I hereby request an amendment to the end date of my internship period according to the attached documents. Got full credit for the hours I needed, graduated on time, have been working as a lawyer for the past 10 years. Edit. Wow, I wrote this and went to bed, and it blew up overnight. Thank you for the awards, people. You are amazing. For the people who are concerned that this report doesn't belong in malicious compliance, please read this subreddit's description. People conforming to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. You don't need to leave someone else in a bad spot for it to be malicious compliance. Am I the jerk for telling my friend she doesn't give fashion advice? She just tells people they're too poor? I have one of these friends who's trying to become an Instagram model who eventually has a lifestyle brand. At first, her unsolicited commentary on our clothes or makeup bothered me, but eventually I kind of recognized it for what it was and set it aside. But recently, she's gotten a solid following based on rating people's looks and giving makeover advice. Now, sometimes younger people on campus will earnestly ask her for fashion advice. One of her most common tips is, "Don't wear the same thing so often. By the time you wear an outfit a second time, there should have been enough time for people to forget you've ever worn it." The problem is, that's only possible if you have a lot of different clothes to mix and match. Recently, I heard her giving a mutual friend some fashion advice, and it amounted to, "I've seen you in that before. Don't wear it again. It signals that you don't care about your appearance, and therefore yourself, if you don't take the time to have different outfits every day." I happen to know that friend is going through a really difficult time financially due to lockdown. So I finally, after a lot of less direct comments through the years, just said straight out, after the girl had left, "That's not fashion advice. That's just telling people they should have more money to spend on clothes," and explained a lot of her advice kind of translates to, "You're too poor to look good," if you don't have the money to execute the tips. Most of her advice is that kind of thing though. Buy a brand new name bag, wear more jewelry, don't use convenience store makeup, etc. So it led to her being really hurt as I broke it down and she realized it encompassed most of her repertoire. I didn't mean for it to be hurtful, it just seemed like something she needed to hear since I think she means well. She says I insulted her livelihood and am just jealous of her skills / don't respect her as a professional. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings, but I don't want her to hurt anyone either. Am I the jerk? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk or is her friend? Please let us know. Her friend reminds me of myself in my younger years. Oh, how I wish Instagram had been around back then. The avalanche of gift cards incident. This incident happened when I worked at a restaurant inside an amusement park around 5 years ago. One day, like normal, this nice elderly lady came to the register and asked me if she's allowed to pay for her food with a gift card. I told her yes, she can purchase the food with it, and if there's any left on the card, I can tell you if. Also, the remaining balance can be paid with either cash or credit. So she proceeded to order about $100 worth of food. She was with the family. Now, after what happens next, I should have said no in the first place. Why? She then proceeded to open up her purse and took out a huge stack of gift cards. Like for some reason, she had around 100 gift cards of this company in her purse. She told me that she buys the cards for her grandkids, and when the kids think they are done with it, they return the card to her. And she didn't know if the cards had money on them. So before she was going to discard them, she wanted me to process it to see if there's something in the cards, so it can be used to pay for the order. So me, since I told her yes, she started to give me the cards one by one. Some had just a few cents, some had a few dollars, and some had nothing at all. So after processing around 50, more or less, gift cards, she managed to pay for the whole thing with the leftover of all those cards. Now, the funny thing happens next. The computer/register thinks that every single card has a different owner. Therefore, it printed the same receipt around 50 times. The receipt that came out for each card would make the ones we get from going to CVS go to shame, or at least go toe-to-toe. Each receipt had all of the food, but also all of the deduction/transaction of every single gift card used in the order. The receipts came out one by one. After like the 10th one out, the lady stood in shock of how many receipts there were. The printer kept puking out more and more, to the point I was about to get covered with receipts if it wasn't for my supervisor and boss luckily showing up to see me trying to handle this predicament. They stood there with me, and like 5 minutes into this thing, the printer still giving more receipts. Then the whole roll of receipt paper ran out and asked for more paper since it still needed to print more. We replaced it and it kept giving us more and more. Another few minutes and then finally stopped. So after this thing finished, I finally could get the next customer. Luckily, we have more than one register, so there was no downtime. But now it gets even funnier. When I took the next customer and I went through to open the menu button to input the customer's order, the computer/register decided to die. It just turned off. It didn't want to turn on. I checked everything. My supervisor and boss also did, and we couldn't find anything wrong. The register just went kaput, or decided it needs a break. But later on in the day, we managed to get it up and proceeded the day as normal. So yeah, this is one of the funniest incidents that happened to me when I worked at a restaurant. Am I the jerk for not giving my adult son a job in my company because of his attitude? My son, 26, male, is really hard to work with. I, 46, male, love him, but let's be honest, he is a jerk at the workplace. He does not know how to argue, and every little argument is like a state of survival. He does not understand where to stop. If he's arguing with someone, he will go any way to win that fight for him. His therapist/psychiatrist said he has borderline personality disorder, and he uses antipsychotics, but it's still in a really uncomfortable level. I also raised him single. His mom was an addict, and she is currently in a full-term care center due to severe disabilities after a traffic accident. My son only saw her twice in his whole life. My son never managed to hold a job other than working as an independent data analyst for pharmaceutical sector. He is really hard to work with, really rude, and he does not understand teamwork. I also manage a company in healthcare sector. We, me and my brother-in-law, have a company that produces spare parts for medical devices. This month, our company needed a data analyst, and my son had just had a contract finish, so he was free, but I directly shut down the idea. I love my son as a dad, but as a boss, I would fire him in the first week. He means trouble. I told all of this in executive board meeting. My brother-in-law agrees with me, but one of the board told this to my mom. She is also a close friend of mine and supported me in this journey, and she told it to my son. My son and I had a big fight, and he had to be hospitalized due to mental disturbance. Everyone thinks I still see him as a baby, and I'm trying to helicopter him. Edit. The board member is my mom's goddaughter and a real close friend of mine. It's the most normal thing for her to say to my mom. Also, my mom did our accounting for a while when we first started as a company, so I trust them both. Edit. Second, I'm not firing my executive board member, and it was just a genuine mistake she made. She never thought, neither did I, my mom would give this kind of reaction. We learned to be more discreet against my mom now. So, am I the jerk, dear folks? Well, what do you think? Is OP the jerk, or is his son? Please let us know.
That's how I feel working with you every day, Mr. Reddit.
Am I the jerk for allowing my cats to be cats? To give a little background, I just moved into a pet-friendly apartment 2 days ago. I have 2 cats. One is 5 pounds and the other is 8 pounds. This apartment is on the 2nd floor and all of the floors are hardwood. There's also no verbiage on the lease requiring tenants to put down carpets in these units. When I was looking at this apartment, the landlord stated that the downstairs tenant can be a bit sensitive to noise. At the time, I thought he was being a little extreme, but I've since learned that's not the case. On the day I moved in, the neighbor from downstairs decided to introduce himself. During his introduction, he mentioned that in the past he's had a lot of issues with noise from the unit I'm moving into, and that he hoped we'd be good upstairs neighbors. I told him that I'm generally a quiet person and that noise shouldn't be an issue. Well, today when I got home from work, I found a notice on my apartment door from management stating that I was reported for having dogs in the apartment, which is against the lease, and that if I don't correct the situation immediately, I'll be evicted. I find this shocking because 1, I don't have dogs, and 2, the landlord knows I have 2 cats. I immediately sent an email to my landlord stating that I don't have dogs and that I believe he put the notice on the wrong unit. I'm still waiting for his response. Cats being cats, they tend to get the zoomies every now and then, which basically amounts to them running up and down the hall and jumping up and down from the couches. Along with this, there's also jumping from the couches to the cat tree to the floor during the non-zoomy time and playing with their toys, which have bells and such, but should not be audible from the lower floor. To me, this is all reasonable noise considering this is a pet-friendly apartment. It's not like I have 2 obese cats either. They're both under 10 pounds and I keep their claws trimmed to limit the clacking and to save my furniture. Yesterday, before I received this complaint, I bought a 16-foot runner to go down the hallway so that the cats don't make as much noise while running. But regardless of the carpet, which will arrive next week, I feel that he's being unreasonable and has a warped perspective on what apartment living is like, especially for someone on the first floor. There will always be noise, and that's just a fact. I shouldn't have to feel like I'm walking on eggshells in my own apartment. Am I the jerk?
Stop what you're doing right now and come watch this video next. You will love it. And please support our channel by joining as a member today, and we'll give you a special shout out in our next video. And to have us make any kind of shout out video you'd like us to, head on over to our Fiverr, link pinned in the comments below.